I'd like to talk about arrays today in JavaScript. Now, as an introduction to this topic, I'd like to pull up a spreadsheet as a way of thinking about this. Commonly, we have lists of items in the real world. Here I have a list of donuts. And if we were to assign this list of donuts to a variable using the traditional approach, then we would have a lot of different variable names. This maybe doesn't look so bad for 15 different items, but I know of a donut shop here locally that has over 350 varieties. And so it would be kind of cumbersome to work with what might be a changing number of items being displayed in your website, for example, using an individual and unique naming convention. And so it would be nicer if we could just have a single list and refer to it in the same way that we might refer to a worksheet page with a single variable name. And then the list might be big or small, and then we just dynamically list how many things are in the list on a web page. So with that, let's go ahead and get started and carry forward. That's the idea of an array. So first I'm going to create a page, and I'll call it array.html, and I'm going to do an exclamation point to fill this material out. I'll change my font size just a little bit so it fits better on the page. And for this particular example, I will put the script for JavaScript in the head portion of the document. So I'll just put a script tag there. And I could, of course, put my JavaScript code in a different file and just do the source equals attribute here. But just for visibility, I'll put it in the same document. Okay, so the thing that I was saying was, if we do something like this, let s donut1, so I'm using Hungarian notation to indicate that I'm working with a string, equals apple fritter. And then we do another one, let s donut2 equals chocolate. This is a decent way to represent different variables, but at scale it becomes pretty cumbersome. And just to get us started here, let's do something to write this out to the screen. I could either do console.log and put the variable name in there, or another way that's not really the preferred way of writing to an HTML document right now, but another option I could do is document.write and put the variable in there. And just for fun, I'm going to use document.write today, even though that's not, oops, my copy and paste did not work the way I wanted it. 1 second there. Copy and paste it in. There we go. And then let me launch this page. I'm going to right-click on this, and I have Live Server installed as an extension from using this little icon right there. And so I'm going to launch it. It's saved. I come out here, and it writes that variable to the page. Okay. When we talk about arrays as a way of storing a list of variables, one thing that we compare them to are mailboxes. So if I go out to the web and I type in mailboxes and I do an image search, the way that we typically think about variables is like this in JavaScript, that you can, a variable is just something with a name, like sDonut1, and we can put whatever we want in there. We can put a string, we can put a number, and various other things. And an array is like a bank of storage spaces. It's like a bank of mailboxes. So in the same way that we might refer to a single mailbox by a number, maybe that's its variable name, we can do the same thing with this and refer to an arbitrarily large number of variables, but then further refer to them by an index number or an offset number. So for regular mailboxes, we might have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. With arrays, we start as 0 by convention, or as a typical way of doing things. So let's get rid of this. I'm going to comment, I'll just delete it all, because I don't need any of that. Okay, so let's create an array that's going to hold variables instead. So I'll go let, and then RG sDonuts equal an empty array, so square brackets. Why did I use RG? RG stands for range, which is a different terminology for saying an array. And this is Hungarian notation, so I'm just indicating at the front that I'm having a range or an array of strings, and then this gives me some more insight into what the context is. It's donuts. All right, so let's go ahead and add our first donut, and I'll go RGS donuts sub 0 equals, and I'll say apple fritter. And let's add another one, RGS donuts 1 equal plain, and RGS donuts 2 equals chocolate. Now, something that could come up right now is, why did we start numbering from 0 rather than 1? And I have two answers to that. The first answer is, the easy answer that you can just memorize and keep with you the rest of your life, is that that's just how it works with arrays. They always start at 0. If you want to have a more technical definition to this, not that you need to remember it, but the more technical definition and understanding is that this number indicates how far off this variable is from the front of this variable, the overall variable. So think of a line. So if I say waiting in line, and I enter this in, and let's look at this woman right here. Ordinally, numerically, she's the first person in line if she's at the front of the line. But if we use this idea of offset and say how far back is she from the front of the line, we would say she's 0 back. And then this next person, how many people are they back from the front of the line? Well, there's one person in front of them, so they're 1 back. So technically speaking, this is how far back you are from the very beginning of the memory storage for this array. And so that's why we start with the 0 in every case. And if we want to have a little bit of fun with this, I have a couple of memes that I pull off of the internet. So let me bring these over so you can read through those. Here's another one. Again, building on this idea that it's an offset. And then here's kind of a funny one. This says, it says 3 programmers walk into a bar, and if you're counting via arrays, the number 2 actually represents 3 slots, so kind of silly. I see a bunch of dog memes related to arrays out there, so the smart dog knows that it starts with 0, and our less smart dog does not know that fact. Okay, so that gets us started with things. One of the cool things about arrays is that once we have some data in them, we can access some properties related to them. So if I grab this, and I can do .length, and you see that comes up in the IntelliSense, so I know how long it is or how many items are in there, even if this was built dynamically. I built this one by hand, but maybe in other contexts it could be a variable length, and this could tell us what it is. Let's go ahead and write this out to the screen. So instead of document.write, I'll do console.log this time. And I'll hit save. And then I'll come over here and I'll right click and go inspect. So I'm using developer tools, and I'll go over to the console, and it holds 3, meaning there's 3 items. Now we can also treat these things contained at a particular index just like regular variables. So I can if statement, so I can say if RGS donuts sub 0 equals apple fritter. Then I could do something. I could pop up an alert box, and I could say alert, there is a match. So I'll go ahead and hit save. It auto reloads in the other screen, and it shows there was a match. So our comparison operators work great. If I change this so that it's not a match, and I hit save again, I still see the length, but I don't see the alert box pop up. And by the way, my HTML is over here. I just kind of arrange things so that the console is the biggest thing that I'm seeing there. All right, I'm going to stop talking about arrays in this video and then continue on in another, just for purposes of controlling the length of these videos.